All right, everyone. The Democratic Party wants $30 billion to build a tunnel between New York and New Jersey. It's called the Gateway Project. And Trump's hesitant to sign off on it. He's like, well, I don't know about this. And they're thinking what the Democrats are claiming is that that's the result of him trying to put the screws to Chuck Schumer, essentially punish him for being in his face. I guess maybe as bargaining leverage for wall funding too. Who knows exactly? Here are my thoughts, though. Let's be pragmatic about this. Stop thinking in terms of just the partisan, which is what politicians tend to want you to do, and think about just on the ground, actually pragmatically getting the tunnel built. What do we know about infrastructural projects within the context of the northeastern part of the United States? They are almost always over budget. They are almost always well beyond their original scheduled date of completion. There are usually all sorts of political problems with it, and the end result isn't always even great. Case in point, the Big Dig. It dragged on for years and years and years. They said traffic in Boston's horrible. We need a tunnel, essentially, to link these two areas so that it can ease up on traffic elsewhere because, everything is snarled to hell. They make their estimates of time, they make their estimates of money. They ran over and over. Every single year they wanted more money, they needed more time. There were continuous problems with traffic while they were doing it, because, they're suppressing certainly traffic movement while they're actually building the Big Dig. One of the first things that happened, I remember, in the wake of them doing like the grand completion, is that one of the concrete panels, the ceiling, actually just fell right down. It was shoddily built and it's still there. It's still functioning, but the cost ran over so many times. It took so much longer. The end result isn't that Boston is demonstrably that much better traffic-wise. It's still a hellhole when you're trying to get anywhere. Half of their streets are one lane, 1.5 lanes where you can only park a fucking bicycle on the side. Have you ever been to Boston? That's the sort of problem we have with northeastern infrastructure. Now, New York City doesn't have quite as bad a problem. I've been through New York City too. Its streets are a little bit more modern because it was entirely revamped in the mid-1800s. A little bit different from Boston, whose basic road structure was already pretty much there in the middle of the 1700s. Yeah, a little bit different. European projects not as efficient as the sort of grid-style American design based on basically ancient Greece and Rome, essentially. And you look at it. They want a tunnel between New York and New Jersey. Do you actually think it will cost $30 billion, or will it end up costing $300 billion? Yeah, Trump would be opening a can of worms. See, here's the project. Here's the problem. The states are saying, well, the federal government can, basically pay for some of it. We'll pay for the rest, though. Don't worry, we want this thing. We're not asking you for the whole total. Trump's like, aha, you're probably going to take money that's been given to you by the federal government anyway and use that to pay your so-called share. So it doesn't make any difference. I think that it's reasonable for the rest of the taxpayers in the United States to ask why the federal government should foot $30 billion for a tunnel that most Americans will never actually use. Now, there are certain coherent infrastructural projects that the federal government has delved into. The modern highway system comes to mind, the modern interstate system. Okay, that's benefiting everyone, except for those flyover towns that got bypassed. They're fucked. That's great. This is a tunnel. It links up Jersey City with New York City. That's basically what it does. Is anybody else driving? Is it benefiting anyone in Vermont? No. That's like they wanted the federal government to foot the bill for connecting the Amtrak rail line basically here up to Burlington to connect all the way from Canada down to New York City. Well, ultimately, it wouldn't benefit. How many people are actually going to use it, since Amtrak is a rickety bucket of bolts at this point anyway? I don't even know why the federal government continues to think that trains are strictly necessary at all. We can ship basically anything we want by air or by truck anyway, faster and more efficiently. Train has some limited uses. They keep talking about high-speed rail. We're going to link up California and build a high-speed rail system. Okay, good luck making it solvent. Okay, you better make sure it's real fucking fast if you're going to make that solvent, because you're going to have to charge people an arm and a leg to use the tickets. It better be as fast as air travel for people who are afraid of planes, essentially. Which is, okay, people might use that. That's great. As far as this fucking tunnel, I know I don't want to pay a bunch of money, which is what would end up happening, for some project for New York City soci-elites. That's essentially what it is. Oh, I guess tired of muddling around the little people. It's for the class of people that still have to use a limousine or a taxi. They can't quite afford their own private helicopter to be scheduled to fly them from the top of one skyscraper to another. Yeah, it's nuts. Trump is right, but for different reasons. They're claiming it's partisan. Now, I don't give a shit about his partisan bickering with Chuck Schumer or any of these others. Clinton came out. The only reason it became a big thing and was in the news at all that, Trump was even weighing in on this or dragging his heels on funding this stupid project is because Hillary Clinton tried to declare that it was a political stunt. Oh, Donald won't green light the Gateway Tunnel. How sad is that? Oh my goodness. Who cares? By the way, why should he have any particular loyalty above and beyond anyone else in the country to that particular region when it went so heavily against him politically? It's not exactly a Republican stronghold. And he's from New York City. Think about that for a moment. He's actually, wouldn't you call it pork barrel if he did sign off? Oh yeah, I'm going to build this tunnel. Trust me, it'll be huge. And he went to New York and said, well, we're building this tunnel. We're going to get, more people can get in and out of New York faster and more efficiently. It's huge. We're going to win bigly, make New York great again. If he were to do that, wouldn't Clinton say, well, he's grandstanding for votes. It's pork barrel. He's giving free money to his people in New York City and that metro region. He's trying to fatten them up, essentially. I think that they would. It may sound a little bit odd because it's actually a liberal stronghold, but no, I think they would actually try to make that argument. I preface that on the fact that these people already claim that peace in Korea is bad for Trump. They're like anti-peace because he happens to be for it. That's how far gone some of these idiots really are. But this is, it's a tunnel linking up to separate chunks of this metro area. That's fine. The infrastructure is great, but the federal government will probably end up paying for it. And the federal government doesn't magically generate funding. People seem to think that government can independently pay for things. It's not possible. Government can only use money that's been allocated to it through taxation or a tariff or something from private individuals. That means it's your money. It's not the government's money. The government doesn't own jack shit. It can pretend that it does. All that's public property anyway. Then, of course, you get into the aspect of public good and, all this other bullshit. Taking people's property away through eminent domain, which, by the way, Trump is a fan of that. That's one thing I mainly disagree with him on. I think a person should get 10 times the value of their property if the government forces them to give it up. That way they can sit pretty. That way their one measly acre they don't want to give up. Who cares? You can go off and buy 10 acres now. So, you could have 10 acres elsewhere, a mile away. I would think that would be even Stevens generally and solves the problem for the vast majority of people who would ever not want to give up their land if offered, its fair value. No, offer 10 times the fair value. There'll be people who will beg you to use eminent domain so that the government can purchase it because it's otherwise non-saleable. Some blighted property or something somewhere that just happens to be within, 10 feet of the border. We want to put an oil pipeline through here. Your property was basically worthless. No one else wants it, but we'll give you $1 million. Cha-ching. Yeah. So the Democrats want a tunnel, and they think that it's political when Trump says, well, maybe we don't want to sign off on this. That's funny. So when he wants necessary infrastructure spending on the wall, which does need to be completed, the Democrats back in the 90s and 2000s used to say this all the time. First term, Obama talked about this concept. So all of a sudden, that's a political thing too. And we shouldn't assume that it's political for the Democrats. You're not being political. You're being humanitarian and very good and gentle. And you love minorities. You love immigrants or something. You love those immigrants that you exploit every day. I can't remember. Wasn't there someone that was going to be appointed labor sec back in the Bush era who had an illegal immigrant maid or something? Or maybe that was the late Clinton era or something. I can't remember. Sometime in the 90s or the 2000s, I do know that because they were joking about it in Mad Magazine, and that's the era I actually read it in. Back when it was, culturally relevant. Is some good shit. Yeah, the Democrats, they care so much about that. They don't spend a penny on this wasteful wall. But this tunnel that's going to benefit a handful of people nationwide, that's necessary. And Chuck Schumer needs to have it absolutely right now. And it won't go over budget. And it won't go over its timetable. It's served an extra decade won't go on, and it won't cost twice as much. Bullshit. It'll cost way more. If they're telling you 30 billions, the total cost will probably cost 100. That's the truth of northeastern infrastructure projects. We are so, it's not like Texas or Wyoming or something. Up here it's highly legalistic and bureaucratic, and so groups of people get together in committee after committee after committee after committee, day in and day out for years at a time before they can build a fucking memorial. You want to put a new sidewalk in? Well, we're gonna have to we're gonna have to call in the Native Americans, because there might be a skeleton under there, and that's sacred remains, and under our laws we have to take extra special care of that. And you can only use certain tools. You can only work under certain conditions. We have to reforest somewhere else because we're cutting a tree down to put this up. We have to do this and that, and we have to make sure workers' comp, and we have to sign all these documents. And where are we going to get the cement from? Oh, we don't know. There's 5 different people. Let's form a second subcommittee in order to figure out where we're going to get the cement from. Oh, what about the shovels? Where are we going to buy the shovels for the crew that's working on it? And then 5 dudes stand around watching 1 dude work. That's the way it works up here. That's why we have infrastructural problems. That's why we have potholes all over this fucking state. Happens here in Vermont more than it does in New York City, which is a sad testament to things. That's about all. Peace out.